Hello, my friends. I am here to answer a couple of questions today that I get all the time. One is, what are the best tools to use to rewire my brain using neuroplasticity? What are the best practices? What's effective? And kind of with that, what did you use? People ask me that. What did you use aside from visualization to rewire your brain? And this question has never made sense to me because that was not how I looked at it or experienced it when I was in recovery, and it still isn't how I see it. So it's time for me to answer these questions honestly. Here's the reality of what I did and how this actually works according to your brain, not your perception. So in this process of rewiring your brain, I want you to understand that there are two ways your brain can be operating or functioning. Either it's in a loop, either it's in a trauma loop, or it's engaging in a positive way with your sensory environment. That's it. There's no other options. Those are the two options. Sometimes you're engaging positively with your sensory environment and your limbic system's still a bit activated in the background. That happens sometimes too. But ultimately in that situation, if you're fully focused on something positive, even if there's still limbic activity happening in the background and you kind of notice symptoms or, fear or negative thought loops or whatever, but you're focused on something, that's still you engaging positively with your environment. Now, where this all started for me was in the first 4 months of my journey, which if you've watched my recovery video, I used my focus and attention to attain essentially a state of nirvana for about 4 months. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I'm not joking. Everything I teach here is what I learned from being in that state for that long. It was insane. And what I learned is another cliche, but very real spiritual saying that everything is energy. And what I really want to bring that down to is something that Alan Watts said that really connected with my experience in that, which is that we can either be, because the brain loves to categorize. When your brain's in a threat state, and in general, like your brain is a survival mechanism. It is a helper to help you survive. It's not meant to help you thrive or be happy. It's meant to help you survive. And so it categorizes and it judges everything and categorizes it and puts things into boxes, because if we didn't know what a blanket was, life would be really confusing. If you didn't know what a flower was or a cup was, it'd be really hard to make sense of your world. So you need to be able to organize and conceptualize the things you encounter each day in order to just go about life and be able to focus on what you're doing and not being like, oh my God, what is that? And it's a car. It's like, we need to be able to categorize. So your brain is going to try to put your brain rewiring practices into categories of effective, ineffective, good, bad, safe, dangerous, etc. And this goes for everything. You have a concept of the color blue, which is very different than how you feel when you release all concepts and all ideas from your mind and just engage with a beautiful blue painting or vase or the ocean. And you're actually just, your actual mind on the most intimate level is interfacing with that experience. And that's it. There's no thought and no concept. That's what we call bliss. That's what joy is. It's just experiencing life as it is without the concepts getting in the way, right? They're there enough to serve us, but we're actually engaging with our experience and receiving it instead of seeing everything as, oh yeah, I know what that is. Okay, I don't need to pay attention to that. Oh yeah, this is this. I don't need to pay attention to that. And how all this ties in is for me, because after that 4 months of nirvana, it was way too much change, way too quickly. I was fawning like, 1,000 out of 10, way out of my training zone, trying to take care of everybody else. I went from being in bed most of the day to like caring for my 5 kids, walking 4 miles a day, driving. I could barely walk around my house when I started. And then I planned an entire family reunion and cooked for 26 people and did the organization of that for a week, 4 months into my recovery. Way too much. So my brain just kind of went out the door after that. And it took me about 9 months to figure out how to generate dose again, because visualization and creating dose specifically were my biggest triggers. My brain saw like brain rewiring and those tools as the problem instead of the circumstances and the fact that I was outside my training zone. So it took me a really long time, is the bottom line, to build a practice. And rounds or visualization, DNRS rounds was what I was using, and visualization in general, even thinking of an image in my mind, remained a trigger for probably 2 or 3 years after that. So it was, I used visualization because it was a way to face those triggers and not let my limbic system win, but it wasn't really an elevating experience. So essentially, really what all brain rewiring comes down to is how are you engaging your attention with what's happening inside of you and around you. And really, it's just about trying to just engaging, learning how to engage your focus with anything in a way where you're truly receiving the thing itself. I spent hours a day listening to podcasts, and I don't remember anything that they said because at the time, what helped my brain feel calm was just listening to the cadence of a person's voice speaking and hearing people have a conversation. That felt comforting, but I couldn't really access my PFC to where I was processing the information. I remember doing this, and I don't remember what the stories were about because I wasn't paying attention. I would stare at the sidewalk when I was outside walking. I would listen to music and focus on all of my attention, every last molecule of it on the sound, really giving all of my attention to following the beat, following the instruments or the voice or whatever it was, and engaging with it emotionally. I would spend hours just staring at the ceiling or the light coming in while maybe listening to beat-based music and just keeping all of my attention in that rhythm and on the light, because that was soothing. And anything else, any thought, any movement from my body would be massively dysregulating. So, and it changed over time, right? I continued to evolve my practice. I took practices like taking a perspective. Self-love was one perspective. Saying everything is love to me was another one, where my sensory environment visually was just so triggering. Everything was triggering for a period of time. And so I would say everything is love to me. And I would imagine that was true kind of intuitively and notice what felt loving and soft in my environment. And it changed the way I saw my children's faces and the way I saw bowls and dishes and light. And I mean, one of my peak experiences in recovery was unloading groceries from Costco and noticing the light hitting the dish drainer in the kitchen. And it is a moment I will never forget. It was one of the most beautiful moments of my life. And it was a dish drainer with light coming in the window, right? Very ordinary, but that's the kind of brain state that I was leaning into. And that's really where, again, you can use any tool you want, but it's really about the intention you're coming from, whether it's love and openness and understanding that this is the brain we're rewiring, and it's really just about how you're engaging your brain, and whether it's in a trauma loop or engaging with something positive, that's all it is. There's nothing to fix. Your brain's going to see tools as a way to fix something, which is understandable. And I can hear you thinking, but well, isn't there something to fix? Like, I got a lot of problems in my life right now. This is kind of an issue, but it's not. It's just how we're seeing things, how we're engaging our brain with things. So that's really all it boils down to. So you can do anything and everything, but if you're coming from a place of trying to fix something or always engaging with things as a means to an end, you're always in a trauma loop and your brain is not going to rewire. Start shifting it from what do I do to how am I showing up to each moment of my life. That's really where your brain gets rewired.